Hello viewers, I am Suvarna Bandari, working as an assistant professor of English at Government Degree College, Jammikunta. It is said our only security is our ability to change. The negative sides of any change are inevitable, right? But what we can do is we can look at the positive sides and prepare ourselves to make virtue out of necessity. As we do need to change as per the need of the hour, so do our teaching learning practices. In this context, I welcome all of you to my online classes on General English. Let's start. Yes, so our today's topic is letter writing. But before entering into the topic, let me ask you one simple question. Do you write letters? Yes? So way back to 15 to 20 years, people used to write letters and send them through post. It used to take lots of time, sometimes days and sometimes weeks, depending on the destination. But now sending and receiving a letter is very easy, isn't it? With the advent of technology and email, it has become so easy to send a letter and receive a letter. So this is happening in just matter of seconds, right? But we can understand letter writing is very much relevant to present times also. In this context, it becomes really important to know few essential things related to letter writing. Now, what are the expected outcomes of this today's class? At the end of the class, you are supposed to know what is a letter, what is the definition of letter, what are different types of letters, and then what are different formats of a letter, and then what are various components of a letter. And after learning all these things, finally, you are supposed to write a letter, draft a letter on your own. So these are the expected outcomes of today's class. Now, what is a letter? So a letter is a written form of communication that is addressed to a specific person or a specific organization. Now, as we know, it is one of the letter writing is one of the easiest and non-expensive means to communicate, isn't it? And the relationship between the writer and the receiver of the letter determines the way a letter is written. We can write letter in different styles and different ways, yes. And the mode of transmission is also it can be through post, it can be through mail. Now, what are different types of letters? So letters can be broadly divided into two types. One is formal letter and the other one is informal letter. So formal letters are mainly used for the professional or official purposes, whereas informal letters are used for personal communication, for the purpose of personal communication. Now coming to types of letters, personal letters are also known as informal letters. Now, on many instances, we may need to write letters to our friends, our family members, our relatives, and sometimes we try to send invitations. Sometimes we convey our congratulations. Sometimes we appreciate them, we thank them. So, personal letters serve all these purposes. Okay, and then coming to formal letters, official letters and business letters. So official letters are the purpose of official letters is sometimes we need to know, ask for some official information, or sometimes we need to exchange information with government officials. Sometimes we need to send application letters for jobs, and we need to send complaints to newspapers. So official letters basically serve these purposes. Okay, and then coming to business letters, they are mainly exchanged between firms, traders, person to companies, company to company. Now, coming to formats of letter formats. So there are basically two formats of a letter: full block format and semi block format. Now, what is full block format and what is semi block format? Let me show you one image which shows us how a letter in full block format looks like and how a letter in semi block format looks like. So are you able to see this image? So in this image, you can see on the right side, you can see uh, a letter formatted in full block format, and then on the left side, you can see a letter in semi-block format. Now, what is the basic difference between full block format and semi-block format? So in full block format, it's very simple. In full block format, all the components of the letter are aligned towards the left. Only all the components are aligned towards the left. Whereas in semi-block format, you can see three components of the letters are aligned towards right, and whereas the rest of the components are aligned towards the left. So what are the components of a letter? We will see later. But here in full block format, all the components are aligned towards the left, and in semi-block format, the three components are aligned towards the right and the rest of the components are aligned towards the left. Moreover, in full block format, you need not to indent any the first line of the paragraph. Okay. So coming to this is the image of a full block format. Here you can see all the components are aligned towards the left side. Whereas this is the image of a semi-block format. You can see the address part and then the closure part and the signature part are aligned towards the right side. And the body of the letter, the date, all these are aligned towards the left. Here you can see in this image, you can see the line spacing, the margins. Yes, all the four sides, the margins are there on all the four sides, and the line spacing between it is the spacing of four lines between one part of the letter to other part of the letter, and the line spacing between lines. So this is the basic format of a letter, semi-block letter. Now, what are different parts of the letter? So, all these are you able to see here the heading, date, address, subject, salutation, reference, then body of the letter, complimentary closing, signature, postscript. So, these are the components in a letter, the components of a later. Now we will see in detail what are the components. We have just seen what are the components, but what components specifically to be included in different forms of letter. Okay. So coming to formal letters, these eight parts, are you able to see here the eight components? So these eight parts are very essential when we draft a formal letter. You need to take care that you include all these eight parts while you draft a formal letter. So what is the first component here? The first component is sender's details. Because when you write a letter, it can when you write specifically a formal letter, it can be in full block format and or it can be semi block format. Whatever the format is, but you need to take care that you include all these eight components. So the first component is sender's details, right? So in sender's details, sender is the one who is who is writing the letter. So in sender's details, we need to mention the details of name and address of the sender. The second component is date, okay? And then the third component is the receiver's details. Receiver is the person to whom we are sending the letter, who is supposed to receive our letter. So in receiver's details, we will mention the details of name and address. The fourth component is salutation component. So in the salutation part, we can use phrases starting with respected sir, respected ma'am, dear sir, dear ma'am, or simply you can write sir, ma'am, like that. And then the fifth component is subject. Subject is very important when it comes to a formal letter. Subject is very essential because uh, as we just discussed, formal letters are for the purpose of official, official purpose, right? So when the receiver is very busy and when the receiver is not able to go through the entire body of the letter, the whole letter, then he or she will just check the subject. The subject is that component in a letter which gives the whole essence of the letter in just one or two sentences. Just by looking at the subject, you can understand what actually the letter contains. Okay, so it is very important to include subject in formal letters. And sometimes we need to include references also, depending on the necessity. If you are referring to some order, government order, or if you are referring to an advertisement, or if you are referring to the previously received letter, you need to mention that in the references part. Okay, and then the body of the actual body of the letter. Now body of the letter is very important because it contains the elaborated message, the actual message of the letter. And then the seventh component is complementary clause. It's always important to use phrases as in the informal letters, it is important to use phrases as yours faithfully, yours sincerely, yours truly, sometimes. And then the last component of the letter is name and signature part. So here, what if we write, if we send the letter in written format or if we send the letter in printed format, doesn't matter, but we need to include our name either in written format or if it is a printed letter in printed format, we need to include our name and then we need to add our signature. We need to do our sign signature there. And then we need to add our designation also. And in the references, if we are adding any references, then we need to add enclosures too. So basically, these eight are important components of a formal letter, and it's very important to take care while drafting the formal letter to include all these eight components. Then coming to informal letter, here we need not to all the eight components, but only we need to add six components. The main components in an informal letter are these six. The first one is tender's details. Here we enter the details, we mention the details of the name and address of sender. We need not to include receiver's information here, receiver's name and address, unlike the formal letters, because we pretty well know who will receive the letter, right? And then we need to add date, and then comes the third component is salutation. So here we can use phrase like dear father, dear friend, dear mother, dear brother, dear Sita, Gita, whoever. And then comes the body of the letter, and as we just discussed, body of the letter is very important because it contains the actual message. And then the complementary clause, the fifth part is complementary clause. You can use yours lovingly because as it is a informal letter, you can use yours lovingly, yours sincerely. And then the last component is again name and signature. So here we omitted subject because in an informal letter, we don't need to include any subject matter, right? So coming to the body of the letter, we just discussed the body of the letter is very important because it contains all the elaborative message. The whole message is included in this body of the letter. But when we draft a formal letter, it is always advisable to divide the body of the letter into three parts. Right? The introduction, what are the three parts? You can divide the body of the letter into introduction, into main content, and into summary. Now, if we, for example, if we are planning the body of the letter in 70, it can be 7 to 8 lines, right? So, for the introduction, we can distribute the 7 to 8 lines into two lines for introduction, maybe 4 to 5 lines for main content, and then 2 lines for summary. So generally we mention what is the purpose of the letter in introduction part, and then the detailed elaborative information in main content, and then just summarizing, just 1 2 lines of summarizing information in summary. So these three parts constitute the main body of the letter. So when we write a formal letter, please take care the take care that the body of the letter will not run in a continuous passage, but instead try to divide it into 3 sections, 2 lines, one section, a small section of introduction, and then 4 to 5 lines of main content, and then maybe 1 to 2 lines of summary. Then coming to informal letters, there is no strict rule that the body of the letter is to be divided into 3 parts, unlike the formal letter. There we divided the body into 3 sections, right? The introduction, the main, and then the summary. So here there's no strict stringent rule that the body of the letter is to be must and should divided into 3 parts. You can give it in a single paragraph or 2 paragraphs as per your choice and convenience. Then coming to tone of the letter, in formal letter we need to take it that the letter sounds a little serious and formal, but in an informal letter, the tone can be very casual, the tone can be cool, and by writing the letter, definitely when we write a letter or to some extent our personality also will be reflected in that letter. So while drafting a formal letter, you need to take care that your personality shouldn't be shown too much. But while writing an informal letter, you can be presenting your own character, your own style within the matter you write, right? And while drafting informal letter, we can use contractions. For example, here you can see I haven't instead of using I have not. But while writing a formal letter, you should not use such contractions. You have to mention clearly I have not, I do not, like that. And coming to the usage of sentences, you should restrict the usage of active voice to some extent in formal letters, but in informal letters you can freely use sentences in active voice, and also you can use exclamatory sentences also. Whereas we need to take care not to use exclamatory sentences, and not to use so much sentence in active voice while drafting a formal letter. Here you can see image of a personal letter. This is a letter written by a student to her teacher. So you can see here first let us see various components of this letter. Here you can see the date, you can see the salutation starting with dear, and then the body of the letter is divided into 2 paragraphs. Then you can see the closure part, complimentary closing, and then the signature. Okay. So if we see, I just wanted to take, I'm going to read the body of the letter just for a few seconds. So the student says, I just wanted to take a moment to write you to express my thanks for the extra tutoring help you gave me this fall as I struggled in my math course. People like you make a world a better place simply because you take the extra time to help others overcome fears and learn important skills. I think I can safely say you are going to make a great math teacher one day. Exclamatory mark. See, as we said, we can freely use exclamatory sentence also in personal letters. And here, while reading this first paragraph of the body of the letter, we can understand to some extent on the backdrop we can understand the personality of the student also, right? So personal letters definitely they give a stroke of our own personality to some extent. Now this is one image of a formal letter. Okay, you can see here the heading part, and then here the date, then the inside the address, and then the salutation. Look here, the body of the letter divided into three paragraphs as we just discussed, and then the complimentary clause, and then the signature part. So this is the format of a formal letter. There is one more image of a personal letter. We can see how the body of the letter is here divided into different parts. Okay, and we can see the salutation starting with here again, and then the complimentary close with lots of love, and the signature. So before assignment, let us quickly recapitulate what we actually learned in today's lesson, right? So we have seen what is a letter, what is the definition of a letter, and then we have seen what are different types of letters, formal letter and informal letter, and personal letters, official letters, and business letters. And then we have seen different formats of a letter, the full block format and semi-block format. And then we have seen how the full block format looks like and how the semi block format looks like. Then we have discussed about various components of a letter, components of a formal letter, and components of an informal letter. Now we also discussed the importance of the body of the letter, and how it is better to divide the body of the letter into three parts, specifically in formal letters. Okay, and then we also have discussed about the tone, the usage of active voice and exclamatory sentences in informal letters. So these are two images. Yes. So now the assignment time. I would like to ask you to write two letters. Sorry, now you are aware how the format of a letter should go, and how what are the different components that are to be included in a letter writing in formal letter or informal letter. So I ask you to write two letters, one formal letter and one informal letter. So, I mean, one personal letter and one formal letter. Now, the personal letter is write a letter to your friends and using word wishes. Very simple one. Okay, and then the official letter, the formal letter is write a letter to the municipal commissioner about the drainage problems. This is a complaint letter in your locality. Okay, so I, mm, I think you will be easily writing these two letters. Okay. So with this, I end my class today about letter writing. Okay, looking forward for your presence in our next classes. So this is Suvarna Bandari signing off the online classes, today's online class on letter writing. Hopefully we will meet in our next classes. Thank you.